Okay, so for the last part of these video lectures, no, outsourcing is still connected to industrial upgrading and even the race to the bottom. It's essentially the global economy that we have today. So ano nga ba itong outsourcing? So outsourcing is transfer of activities once performed by an entity to a business or to businesses in exchange for money. So outsourcing is, for example, when you outsource a certain activity from another business or from another entity. Okay, one example of this is the outsourcing of help, yung mga help for our homes. Like for example, mag-outsource ka ng what do you call this? Caregiving, for example. Okay? So, 'di ba pag maghanap ka for example ng housemaid, no? Yung ginagawa ng mga mayayaman, no? Ginagawa nila is they go to a certain agency. Okay, doon sila magsasabi ng qualifications na titignan nila para sa i-hire nila na housemaid. Then, yung agency yung maghahanap ng housemaid na magko-qualify doon sa qualifications ng tao na yun, no? Then, yun yung ipapadala niya na maid na magtatrabaho para doon sa particular na bahay. That's outsourcing. Okay, so you make use of another entity, another business to perform an activity in exchange for money because of course suswelduhan mo yun siya. Another example is yung sa catering services, like for example you have a celebration or you have an event, tapos mag-outsource ka ng help, maghahanap ka ng catering services na magpo-provide ng pagkain for your activity, for example. Okay, kasi hindi mo ma-manage, for example, so you outsource. Okay, so outsourcing is always in exchange for money. Always na may bayad yan siya. Another example is when restaurants would outsource help from other companies, ganyan. Kaya nga siya outsource because galing sa outside na source. Galing siya sa outside, meaning to say kasi walang makapag-perform sa inyo within your house, within your company, within your factory, etc., etc. So you look for outside sources, outsourcing. Okay? And then we also have, of course, offshore outsourcing. So this is more specific. So sa offshore outsourcing, this is a form of outsourcing wherein the process, wherein, for example, the transfer of activities happen between or in another country. Okay? So the general label is outsourcing, but the more specific one is offshore outsourcing. So one very great example of this one is yung ating OFWs, yung mga overseas Filipino workers. Okay? Kasi 'di ba, yung ginagawa ng mga OFWs natin is they apply to agencies na naghanap for example ng nurses, naghanap ng domestic workers, ng mga caregivers, naghanap ng laborers, ganun-ganun, doon sila mag-apply. Kasi nga, yung mga agency na iyon, meron yan siya silang contact sa other countries. Like for example, yung agency na yon is may contact siya kay North America or kay Europe. So, for example, we have a company in Europe or a hospital in Europe that's looking for nurses, no? Yung i-contact ni Europe is yung agency dito sa Pilipinas. So, in turn, yung agency dito sa Pilipinas, siya yung maglalabas ng mga advertisements. We're looking for ganito, ganyan. Then, doon mag-a-apply yung ating mga nurses. Then, saka sila ipapadala dito sa Europe. That is offshore outsourcing. You outsource offshore, meaning to say outside your shores, outside your national boundaries. Okay? So, you might be wondering, what is the relation of outsourcing with industrial upgrading and race to the bottom? But before that, we also have insourcing. So insourcing is, it involves the fact that offshore outsourcing necessarily involves tasks being taken in by firms in other countries. The work that is outsourced is simultaneously insourced by those individuals or companies. So kung ikaw yung nag-outsource ng help mo, at the same time, you are also insourcing your activities. Parang it's a matter of perspective between the receiving company or entity and the giving entity. Okay, so back to my question, or back to our concern. Ano yung relationship ng outsourcing, especially yung offshore outsourcing sa race to the bottom at saka industrial upgrading? Okay, di ba, as I've told you, race to the bottom usually would employ workers, okay, would employ workers who are willing to work under dire circumstances, under poor working conditions, di ba? And kadalasan, no, this is especially true with our OFWs. Kadalasan, ang magte-take up ng works na yan ay mga workers galing sa abroad, di ba? Kasi it's certainly the case na yung mga OFW natin, yung mga OFWs natin, marami sa kanila na working for low wages or working for just to work for any money para maipadala sa family nila, for example. Because, di ba, desperate circumstances call for desperate measures. So, parang kahit bugbog sarado na sila sa trabaho nila doon, maliit lang yung sweldo, ang pangit ng working condition, parati silang may sakit, go lang sila ng go because they have to feed their families dito sa Pilipinas, 'di ba? That's the harsh reality of our the life of our OFWs. Tapos ito naman dito sa Pilipinas, no? Pag nagpapadala ng remittance yung parents nila o yung kamag-anak nila, grabe, one day millionaire, naglulustay ng pera, ganyan. So without knowing na yung palang nagpadala ng pera, bugbog sarado na nga, overtime kasi nagpa-participate sa race to the bottom yung napagtrabahuan niya. Because, no, it also explains another explanation of why when it comes to US and China, why the production is expensive sa US, for example. Kasi they would refuse, sa US, they would refuse to work under those circumstances. Kung titignan ninyo sa US, for example, in production companies na hindi maganda yung working conditions, makikita natin doon is mga illegal immigrants or illegal migrants, illegal workers, ganyan. Kasi sila lang yung willing na mag-take up ng mga trabaho na hindi tinitake up ng mga Americans mismo. Okay? And then we also have financial globalization. So one of the most important events to explain financial globalization, especially the linkages and the networks and chains of events or occurrences in financial globalization, is yung tinatawag natin na what's this? Great Recession. Okay, so the Great Recession or the financial globalization is actually, well, characterized by this famous saying: when the American economy sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. Kapag daw nag-sneeze yung economy ng Amerika, the rest ng mundo nagkaka-colds. Okay? Like for example, kapag kayong katabi mo is nag-sneeze siya, may tendency na ikaw magkakasipon ka rin, di ba? So dito, this is taken in the context of financial globalization. Okay? Ang sabi dito, when the American economy sneezes, kapag may nangyaring hindi maganda or nagkasakit or may symptoms ng sakit yung economy ng Amerika, the rest of the world nagkakasakit rin. Okay? So here's what happened with the Great Recession. Okay, so the Great Recession is a name commonly given to the 2008-9 financial crisis that affected millions of Americans. This was the most dramatic employment contraction of any recession since the Great Depression. It was a global economic downturn that devastated world financial markets. Diba? So it devastated not only the American economy but the world financial markets, as well as the banking and real estate industries. It has been linked to the so-called subprime mortgage loan crisis. So ang nangyari kasi is, di ba sa America is the way to acquire lands and even houses is kailangan mong kailangan mong dumaan sa bangko. Kailangan nilang i-check yung credit score mo if pwede kang utangan ng bangko, ang ganyan. Hindi katulad sa atin, for example, na yung lupa natin is inheritance, yung lupa natin is binibili through cash, ganyan-ganyan. And wala tayong like, pag nakabili na tayo ng house and lot, wala na tayong binabayarang mga taxes, ganyan. Sa USA, binabayaran pa rin nila yung tax nila, mga mortgage loan nila, and etc. etc. So, ang nangyari is, yung mga bangko sa USA, nagpautang sila ng mga bahay. Okay? So kasi their goal is to help middle income and even to a certain extent lower income people. Okay? So they offered a loan with zero interest. Okay? So with zero interest, so marami yung na-attract doon, of course, kasi you imagine zero interest yung loan, walang interest, walang tubo. But then as time goes on, nagkaroon ng interest yung mga loans nila. To the point na sobrang tumaas yung interest ng loans nila. Hindi na nila kayang bayaran. Because remember, yung loan na to was targeting low-income people or middle-income people na in usual times, hindi makaka-afford nun. So, after years, nung naglagay na sila ng interest, kasi of course, malulugi yung bangko kapag walang interest, hindi na ma-afford yung mga bahay, yung mga mortgage nila. So, ang resulta is nagkaroon ng foreclosure of homes. Ang nangyari, nalugi yung mga bangko sa Amerika, and then yung ibang yung mga tao nawalan ng trabaho. But then, how did this affect the rest of the financial markets? Because nung nalugi yung mga bangko, nalugi rin yung mga nag-invest doon sa ekonomiya ng Amerika. Okay, that's why it resulted to elimination or termination of works for some Americans, and then nalugi yung investment ng other countries sa sa Amerika. So nung nalugi yung investment sa Amerika, nalugi of course yung isang bansa. So kaya nagkaroon ng Great Recession. So in the end, ang ending niyan, tumaas na naman yung mga presyo ng mga bilihin and etc. etc. para makabawi doon sa pagkalugi nila. That's why, the losses experienced by American banks contributed to a global banking crisis, and other financial and economic institutions were adversely affected as well. Okay? So, kaya nga, sabi doon, when the American economy sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. Kapag may nangyaring hindi maganda sa American economy, magkakaroon yun siya ng negative effect rin sa other countries, sa other parts ng mundo. Okay? And then, another important, another important concept rin in financial globalization is yung tinatawag natin na sovereign wealth funds. Okay, so these are funds controlled by nation states that often invest in other countries or often invested in other countries. Okay, ano yung sovereign wealth funds? These are funds controlled by nation states. More particularly, these are extra funds controlled by nation states. So, if you are familiar with the Maharlika Fund ng Pilipinas, that's supposed to be intended to be a sovereign wealth fund of the Philippines, SWF. Pero, the biggest concern there is sovereign wealth funds actually pertain to extra funds, meaning to say, yung pera na hindi ginagamit ng isang nation state, na ginagamit niyang pag-invest sa other countries. For example, gagamitin niyang FDI, pa-invest niya sa other countries para ganyan-ganyan, or gagamitin niyang portfolio investment. So, manggagaling yun siya sa sovereign wealth funds. And this can only be possible if merong mga extrang pera, may surplus, may sobra yung nation state, yung gobyerno, yung isang bansa. The question is, with the amount of utang that the Philippines has, paano tayo nagkaroon ng extra na pondo? Kung hindi nga natin masolusyonan yung problems natin with poverty, paano tayo nagkaroon ng extra funds that is intended to be invested in other countries? Kung hindi natin ma-solve yung problema natin with infrastructures, with employment problems, job problems, salary problems, kaya nga walang natitira sa atin na professionals. Paano tayo magkakaroon ng extra funds to be used in our to be invested in other countries? 'Di ba? Kaya nga tayo umuutang kasi ang ibig sabihin nun, kulang tayo sa pera. Pero how come na meron tayong tinatawag na sovereign wealth fund that is supposed to come from extra funds controlled by the nation states? Okay? This actually came under fire, I think, in 2022 or 2023 before the approval of the Maharlika funds. Kasi it was proposed that the funds would be coming from GSIS and Land Bank. Pero GSIS kasi is actually a safety net for the people. Yung GSIS, the funds that are distributed there or contributed there rather, the funds that are collected there are actually not owned and controlled by the nation states. Why? Kasi yung mga pondo doon sa GSIS are owned by the people, the government employers na nagko-contribute doon. Kasi yung GSIS, kapag ka magre-retire na yung may-ari nung pera na yon, ika-claim niya yung perang what do you call this? Inipon niya sa GSIS. Now, if the GSIS was used as fund for investment in other countries, wherein there is no certainty, there is no absolute certainty na successful yung fund, there is no absolute certainty na may return of investment, paano kapag ka nag-fail yung investment gamit yung GSIS na pera? So kung ikaw, for example, na government employee, for 30 years of government service, nagko-contribute ka every month, and you were expecting na after your retirement, makakakuha ka ng more than 1 million pesos. Pero, ang ginawa pala is ginamit na investment, tapos hindi nag-succeed yung investment, anong mangyayari? Eh di ang ending, wala kang makukuhang pera upon your retirement. Okay? That's why sovereign wealth funds are actually usually what do you call this? Owned by wealthy countries. Kasi yung wealthy countries, sila itong mga countries na meron talagang extra, may surplus na pondo. Katulad, for example, ng mga Middle Eastern countries na sobra-sobra yung yaman nila, hindi nila alam saan gagamitin, ini-invest nila, 'di ba? Pero how come na ang Pilipinas na puno ng utang, na every year umuutang, may time pa at may pondo na mag-invest sa other countries? Bakit hindi na lang i-invest sa sariling bansa? 'Di ba? That's the million-dollar question. 'Di ba? Paano? And there is no certainty kapag nag-invest tayo sa other companies or other corporations, walang kasiguraduhan na may babalik sa atin na investment, na may ROI tayo. So, why do we risk that? Do we have the what do you call this? Do we have the luxury to risk millions of pesos? Wala tayong luxury to risk millions of pesos because naghihingalo nga tayo. Wala tayong luxury to risk any type of money because any money kailangan ng mga Pilipino. So, I don't understand ganyan. Although investments are good, pero mahirap ito siya kapag walang bumalik sa atin na investment and etc. And the government should be thinking of the people first before ganyan. Okay? Lastly, we have consumption. So, it is important to note that there has been a tendency to closely associate consumption as well as the globalization of consumption with America and Americanization. Okay? So, remember the discussion regarding Americanization and especially yung emergence ng Americanization. Okay? So, this is largely traceable to the affluence of the US after the close of World War II and the economic difficulties encountered by most other societies in the world during this period. Therefore, the US developed an unprecedented and unmatched consumer society for several decades after the end of the war, and at the same time began exporting it and its various elements to much of the rest of the world. Okay, so kaya it's very associated with consumption. Kaya nga rin globalization is closely associated with Americanization. Okay, so the issue of globalization now is how it is implicated in all of this beyond the mere fact that of consumption sites and consumption goods and etc. 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 Okay, so consumption is very also in this contemporary period, no, it's very closely related to hyperconsumption and hyperdebt. Okay, so ano yung hyperconsumption at saka hyperdebt? This is the current, parang this is the current tether of consumption with globalization, or ito yung yung latest na update as to the relationship of consumption and ano ba to? Globalization, aside doon sa increasing demand for commodities. So, hyperconsumption means buying more than one can afford. Okay? Hyperdebt is owing more than one will be able to pay. Okay, hyperconsumption is kapag bumibili ka ng isang produkto, ng something na sobra-sobra sa budget mo. For example, hyperdebt is, for example, kapag nangutang ka ng amount na alam mo naman na hindi mo kayang bayaran. Okay. Example, iPhones. Bagong labas yung iPhone 15 Pro Max. Because of your tendency to stay with the trend, no? Kahit meron ka ng iPhone 14 or iPhone 13 Pro Max, whatever, no? Nung lumabas yung iPhone 15 Pro Max, hala, mangungutang ka, pautang ako ng 100,000 kasi kailangan ko na talagang makabili ng iPhone because kapag hindi ako nakabili ng bagong iPhone, mapag-iwanan ako sa uso, di ba? So, you are hyper-consuming, you are buying more than what you can afford, and you're also having hyper-debt. Kasi for example, estudyante ka or you're a worker, a government worker, pero ang monthly wage mo lang is 10,000 pesos. And the amount of iPhone 15 Pro Max is more than 100,000 pesos, di ba? So, hyper-debt na yun. Kasi alam mo naman na hindi mo kayang bayaran, nangutang ka pa. Hyper-consumption kasi hindi mo naman afford eh, di ba? Kasi this is actually the trend today. Na yung nangyayari kasi sa atin is we tend to buy things that are actually not very necessary for our existence. Okay? And this is the result, the consequence, the impact of globalization. This is the result of the transnational capitalist class, okay, feeding us the consumer ideology, the culture ideology of consumerism. This is the result of capitalism and etc. etc. Telling us now you have to buy this in order to stay on trend. You have to buy this and consume this and that and that and that, and you have to buy your to utang this money and you have to ganyan. Another example, no? Dahil sa kahilig natin sa, for example, Korean pop, no, K-pop, or for example si Taylor Swift, no, pero tapos magko-concert siya. Okay, magko-concert siya, hindi na tuloy yung concert na sa Pilipinas. So yung pinakamalapit sa atin is either Singapore or Japan. Bili ka ng ticket ng Eras Tour niya sa Japan or sa Singapore, di ba? My God, estudyante ka pa lang, girl. Or grabe yung salary mo 10,000 tapos yung ticket niya 60,000. That's not even including the airfare, yung pang-flight mo sa plane, hindi pa kasali yun yung kakainin mo, hindi kasali doon yung tutulugan mo, hindi kasali doon yung lahat-lahat na, di ba? So, no, we tend to hyper-consume and hyper-utang dahil sa globalization, dahil sa mga attractive sites, attractive products and objects na pinipresent sa atin ng globalization. Or hyper objects, for example, and services. So, mga services, for example, ganyan-ganyan, yun na nga, no? Or activities, yung consumer objects, for example, hyper objects, consumer objects. So, for example, may bagong release na sasakyan na ganyan-ganyan. So, wala, ganyan, di ba? So, bili ka ng bagong sasakyan, benta mo yung sasakyan mo, hindi sapat yung pagbenta mo ng sasakyan, pero wala ka ng other funds, so mangungutang ka, ganyan. So, di ba? Yun yung nangyayari sa atin. Or, simply na, ano ba to? Yung mga online shopping natin. So, online shopping are actually another form of consumption process and consumption sites. Sites na lang, okay? Kasi 'di ba yung transition natin from physical stores to online stores, no? Kahit nakahiga lang tayo, nabubudol tayo, kahit nakahiga lang tayo, magiging one day millionaire tayo because of the different consumption objects na or products na ino-offer nila sa atin na nainganyo tayo na nagpapatong-patong na hanggang sa hindi na natin alam saan tayo kukuha ng pera pagdating ng parcel natin, di ba? And then, consumption processes naman. Dahil sa hilig natin, for example, mag-shopping or for example, because nauso yung online shopping, no, na may access ka na finally sa may access ka na finally sa Amazon, directly makaka-order ka na from US or from UK. Mag-apply ka ng credit card, no, hanggang sa nagpatong-patong na ngayong credit mo, wala kang pambayad or yes, bago na yung GCash, no? Bago na yung GCash, ano yung tawag doon? G-loan or whatever, ganyan. Utang ka ng utang sa ganyan, wala kang pambayad. Shopee Pay, ano pa dyan? S-Pay Later, ano ba yan? S-Pay Later, ganyan. Tapos may G-loan and whatever, ganyan. So, yung mga bagong consumption practices na nauso dahil sa globalization. That makes it harder and harder to resist consuming products that galing sa globalization. Okay? And then, when it comes also to consumption, no, nag-increase yung consumers. Kumbaga, nalalamangan ng consumers yung dami ng producers. Mas marami yung nagkukonsume kaysa gumagawa. Diba? Yun yung nangyayari ngayon. Mas marami ng bumibili kaysa sa nagbebenta. Okay? So, not only do more people spend more time consuming, but they are increasingly more likely to define themselves by what they consume. Kapag wala kang iPhone, hala ka, purita ka, hala ka, wala kang silbi sa mundo, 'di ba? Parang porket ba hindi ako umiinom ng milk tea, hindi ko na alam yung lasa ng milk tea or mababang nilalang na ako, ganyan. So, actually that's the result of globalization. Okay? That is the result of globalization. Yung changes sa ating consumption practices. Pati changes mismo sa mga tao. Brings us to the concept of global resistance. Okay? So what you're seeing here is, this is Champs-Élysées sa Paris. Okay? An avenue in Paris. Okay? So isa ito sa pinakamalaking nag-resist sa globalization, sa global processes, global flows, and etc. As you can see, no, sobrang ganda ng avenue na ito sa Paris. And imagine, in this time and age, no, imagine na maintain nila yung beauty na ito, yung mga trees nila, the aesthetics, the buildings, ganyan, hindi napalitan ng mga modern buildings na puro glasses, for example, or high-rise, sobrang high-rise buildings, ganyan. That's because they refused to be, kumbaga, to be changed by, what do you call this? To be changed by, ano ba to? Globalization. Although, dito sa avenue na ito, makikita natin yung, for example, mga branded stores, ganyan, yung mga mega stores, for example, pero they still refuse to, like, change themselves in order to accommodate globalization. Okay? Kasi di ba kadalasan with globalization nasisira yung, for example, mga ancestral homelands, mga ancestral buildings, nasisira yung lugar dahil sa kagustuhan na i-accommodate yung mga modern buildings or ganyan, mga fast food chains, ganyan. Pero tingnan niyo dito, ang ganda pa rin ng Champs-Élysées sa Paris. Okay? So, global resistance because ayaw nila na mawala yung value ng lugar nila or mawala yung identity ng lugar nila dahil sa globalization. There's actually one issue. This is a very great example actually. One rumor years ago na yung golf course natin sa MSU would be papatayuan ng Moonleaf, yung Moonleaf na milk tea sa Comcent, no? Moonleaf na milk tea house doon daw sa golf course. And sobrang daming MSU1s na nag-react saying na hindi pwede, napatayuan yan kasi masisira yung golf course. Golf course is a symbol of MSU, ganyan, na kapag ka nagpatayo kayo ng building dyan sa gitna or sa kalagitnaan ng golf course, hindi lang environmentally masisira, pati masisira yung image ng MSU. So, yun, nagkaroon ng resistance and hindi natuloy yung rumor na yon, hindi nadagdagan yung rumor na may magpapatayo doon. Another example is when it comes to Siargao, if you've been to Siargao or if you're a resident of Siargao or if you've visited Siargao, sa Siargao kapag pupunta ka doon, you cannot usually buy pasalubong na marami for your friends and family because mapapansin niyo na yung mga stores sa Siargao, they sell products na sobrang ang mamahal ng mga products doon actually. Na kasi ang nangyari kasi sa Siargao, they cater to foreigners and tsaka yung mga mayayaman, 'di ba? Kasi naging ano na siya naging tourist spot na rin sila eh. So yun yung one instance wherein yung kumbaga one instance or yung isang mangyayari kapag ka, for example, parang hindi mo ni-resist yung influensya ng globalization. It really would affect lives, the way of your life, and especially yung cost of living ng mga tao. Kasi for example, kung marami-raming ganyan-ganyan na doon yung kinikater ninyo is mga foreigners, parang kahit saan ka pupunta, bibili ka ng ganyan, sobrang mahal na. Ikaw mismo na residente sa isang lugar, hindi mo ma-afford, 'di ba? Yung mga binibenta doon. So that's how globalization affects the global economy and the consumers themselves and the act of consumption, the practice of consumption.